All right, so we're back for another deep dive. And, this time I think we've got a pretty interesting one, I think. We're going to be talking about Kendrick Lamar and the 2028 Olympics.
Oh, wow. That's a good one. Yeah. That's really interesting, I think.
Yeah, so just to kind of set the table here a little bit.
Sure.
There's been a lot of talk lately about Kendrick Lamar potentially being involved in the 2028 Olympics in Los Angeles.
Right.
And so what we've got here is a few articles that are talking about this, talking about his recent successes, kind of speculating on what role he might play.
Interesting.
And I think it's just a really fascinating case study of, how these sort of different worlds collide, right? You've got the music world, you've got the sports world, and they don't always intersect, but when they do, it's really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And Kendrick Lamar, I mean, what a figure to kind of be the center of that potential intersection.
So what do you think is the most interesting thing that's come out about this so far?
Well, I think the thing that kind of struck me right away was Casey Wasserman, who's the chairman of the LA 28 Olympic Committee. Him coming out and saying that it's a pretty fair bet that Kendrick Lamar will be involved in the games in some way. And he went on to say that, fortunately, in my day job, I represent Kendrick Lamar. So he's sort of implying this very direct connection between himself and Lamar, which is really interesting.
Yeah, it's not just like idle speculation, it's like this is someone who is in a position to actually make this happen. He's putting it out there.
Yeah, I think that's what really caught my attention too, is that the fact that it's coming from someone who could actually have a correct impact on making this a reality.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting too, because it sort of suggests that they're really thinking about how to present Los Angeles, to the world. Right? Like, how do you capture the essence of LA and put it on this global stage?
And who better, I think, than Kendrick Lamar to represent the sort of feeling and the
And Wasserman actually called him truly an LA icon.
Yeah, which
I think is so fitting.
True. I mean, he really does embody that in so many ways.
Yeah. So I think, it's really interesting to think about what his involvement might actually look like.
Right.
Because they haven't really said anything specific.
Right. They've been very vague about it.
Right. They've just been very vague.
Right.
So I think that's part of what's making this so intriguing.
Totally.
Right. Is that it's just like this open question of like, okay, so we know he's probably going to be involved somehow, but what's it going to be?
Right.
And the other thing I think that's kind of adding to this is that this is happening at a time when Kendrick Lamar is just like on top of the world.
Huge right now.
I mean, he just won 5 Grammys.
5 Grammys.
Yeah, in February for Not Like Us. Which is his Drake diss track.
Right, exactly.
And then he performed at the Super Bowl.
At the Super Bowl,
with SCA.
Right.
So it's just like he's having this huge moment.
It seems like everything he touches right now is just turning to gold.
Yeah, and so now to have this Olympic thing sort of on the horizon.
It's like the next logical step.
Right. It's just like, okay, what's next for Kendrick? Oh, maybe the Olympics.
The Olympics, right, exactly.
No.
Yeah, and I think what's so interesting about that too is that, you mentioned the Grammys and the Super Bowl. And do you think it was about those performances that might have sort of, cemented his place as a potential candidate for this kind of role?
Well, I mean, you think about the Super Bowl especially. That's like a global stage.
Totally, yeah.
Right? Like billions of people watching around the world.
It's the biggest stage in the world, really, I think, for a musician.
And he did not shy away from the moment.
Yeah, he embraced it fully.
He really did.
Yeah.
He even performed a little bit of Not Like Us.
Right.
Which I thought was really interesting.
Yeah, very bold choice.
Yeah, it was a very bold choice.
Yeah, to bring that to that kind of a stage.
Right, and it was like a very specific kind of culturally rooted song,
Yeah. I mean, it takes a certain level of confidence to do something like that.
To do something like that on that stage.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and to me it just spoke to like his confidence as an artist.
Yeah.
And his willingness to like and bring his authentic self to that kind of a platform.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it would have been very easy for him to just play it safe.
Right.
And do the hits and the things that everyone knows.
Right.
But he chose to do something that was a little bit more, edgy and really speak to his own artistic vision.
And I think, that's what makes him so compelling, right? Is that he's not afraid to be himself.
Yeah.
Even on the biggest stages.
Yeah.
And I think
that's what makes him such a good fit potentially for the Olympics.
Right.
Because the Olympics is all about celebrating diversity and celebrating different cultures and different perspectives.
Right.
And I think Kendrick Lamar really embodies that.
Yeah, he's not afraid to be different. He's not afraid to challenge the status quo. And I think that's that's what makes him so relevant, I think.
Absolutely. And I think the fact that he's coming off of these big successes with the Grammys and the Super Bowl, it just kind of adds to the momentum.
Yeah.
It makes it seem like this is the natural next step for him.
He's on this trajectory, and the Olympics are just like the next stop,
Yeah, exactly.
And the timing of this is also really interesting.
Yeah, how so?
Because it's happening right as he's about to embark on this huge tour.
That's right, the Grand National Tour with SCA.
Right.
That kicks off in April.
Yeah.
And it's going all over the U.S. and then internationally.
Yeah.
So it's like he's going to be in the public eye.
Right.
In a really major way.
Yeah.
Leading up to 2028.
Right. So it's almost like this perfect storm of momentum and visibility. And then you add to that the fact that he just did this guest verse.
Right. On Playboi Carti's new album.
Yeah. On Playboi Carti's album, Music.
Yeah.
And even in that vert, he was like subtly addressing some of the controversies in the music industry.
Right. He's not afraid to touch on those things.
Yeah, like Drake's legal issues with UMG.
Yeah.
And it just shows that he's like constantly engaged with the cultural landscape.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes this potential Olympic involvement so intriguing, is that it's not just going to be some sort of superficial performance.
Right.
Like, I think he's going to bring something deeper to it.
Right. He's going to bring some kind of commentary or some kind of statement.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And I think you mentioned earlier the idea of Los Angeles and how they're going to present themselves by the world in 2028.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine the opening ceremony with Kendrick Lamar.
Right.
Playing a central role.
Oh my God.
I mean, that would just be...
It would be electric.
Electric. It would set the tone.
Yeah.
For the entire game.
Yeah. It'd be like, no, this is not your typical Olympic. This is something different. This is something unique.
It would be a statement.
Yeah.
About Los Angeles.
Yeah. And what's so cool about it, too, is that it's like, we don't know what it's going to be.
Right.
It can be a performance.
It could be a song.
It could be a song.
It could be him curating.
Yeah.
Some kind of cultural program.
Yeah. Like, the possibilities are...
endless.
Kind of endless.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of what's making this so exciting.
Totally. Yeah, I think it's that sense of mystery and the potential for something really groundbreaking.
Yeah, I think it's going to be huge.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think it speaks to the power of music.
Yeah.
Of the power of artists to really shape global events.
Yeah, and to kind of, capture the spirit of a city or of a moment.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, I'm really excited to see how that's all plays out.
Me too. I think it's going to be fascinating.
So what are some of the things that you're thinking about?
Well, like what are you hoping to see from Kendrick at the Olympics?
I think for me, I'm really interested in seeing how he's going to use this platform.
Yeah.
To to say something meaningful, to say something that's going to resonate with people around the world.
Yeah.
I think he has a really unique voice and a really unique perspective.
Right.
And I think he's not afraid
to
use it.
Yeah.
So I'm really curious to see what he's going to do with this opportunity.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting too, because we've talked about how he's like this LA icon, right?
But he also has this global appeal.
Huge global appeal, yeah.
Right. So I think he's really well positioned to kind of bridge those two worlds.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he could speak to both.
Yeah.
The local and the global.
Right, and I think that's what the Olympics are all about, right? It's like this coming together of different cultures and different perspectives.
And I think Kendrick Lamar is someone who can really speak to that.
Yeah, so I think it's going to be really interesting to see what he comes up with.
Yeah, I can't wait.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see what he does.
So as we kind of wrap things up here, I think, the big question that we're left with is, what kind of performance or contribution do you envision from an artist like Kendrick Lamar on a stage as global as the Olympics?
Right.
It's a thought worth exploring as we look ahead to 2028.
Yeah, and I think it's a question that we can all kind of ponder.
Right.
As we wait and see.
As we wait and see what unfolds.
What happens.
Yeah, I think it's going to be fascinating.
So thanks for joining us for another deep dive.
My pleasure.
And we'll see you next time.
See you later.